moderator in the Hebrew scriptures of the Old Testament. The story of the Exodus is presented as one of the defining experiences in Israel's understanding of who she was and the God she worshipped. And one of the many threads running through the Exodus story is that people found themselves living through a time of transition. Life was changing. The familiar patterns were giving way to something new, something different. And no matter how much they looked forward to the land flowing with milk and honey, there were also feelings of anxiety, frustration, hesitation, trepidation, fear, doubt. In the desert, you'll recall that people pleaded with Moses to return to Egypt, to the old ways, where at least they had food to eat and a place to bury their dead. As a church, we find ourselves living through a period of transition. Familiar patterns are giving way to something new, something different. And as the Working Party has engaged with ministers, elders, and church members across the country, we've sensed the uncertainty, indeed the anxiety many are feeling at this time. Some have expressed a longing to return to the old ways. Others are excited about what the future holds. And yet for all, there is an acute awareness that the familiar patterns and structures of church life and ministry and worship and mission are changing. The new patterns have yet to emerge. The number of presbyteries, the number of ministers, the number of buildings, presbytery plans, so much in a state of flux, with the eventual outcome anything but clear. All of which has left colleagues, elders, and church members wondering, fretting, anxious about what it will mean for them, for their ministry, for their congregation, for their community. We are a church in transition. The Radical Action Plan, the Special Commission chaired by Professor Ferguson, the General Trustees report on well-equipped spaces in the right places, and all the implications which flowed from these reports, accelerated by the experience of the pandemic, COVID-19, reflected in the reports to this General Assembly. And all of this detailed analysis and reporting has provided the context for Giving to Grow, the proposed new ministry and mission allocation scheme. Giving to Grow is not designed to replace the old way of doing things, not to provide funding resources for the old patterns of church life and ministry. It is designed to be one of the tools which will help our church emerge renewed, invigorated, equipped to meet the opportunities and challenges of the coming year. Based on the actual cost of a minister of word and sacrament, the proposed new contribution scheme will make clear to members what their church is contributing to the ministry they receive. What, if anything, their charge is contributing to support the wider ministry of the church, and what their charge is giving to support the wider work of the whole church, including the work of their own presbytery. And with the accessible income based on the most recent year, as opposed to the 3-year rolling average as under the present scheme, as well as being much simpler to understand, the proposed scheme will be much more responsive to changing circumstances. Acutely aware of the financial impact of the pandemic on the church, and in order to allow time for the new M&M scheme to be introduced, the Working Party proposes the introduction of a transition fund. The fund will be time-limited, 5 years. It will do as it says. It will help the church transition to new patterns of ministry, of worship and of witness. And the Working Party also proposes a communication strategy to accompany the introduction of Giving to Grow, a communication strategy which, as well as explaining the new scheme, will celebrate the remarkable work already being done by our church, locally, nationally, and internationally, and inspire us to imagine and enact new ways of being the body of Christ. Moderator, we are a church in transition. And yes, that brings its own very real anxieties and uncertainties, but we're also a people of faith. Faith in the God who is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We look forward with the hope and confidence of our faith. God is with us. And we can trust God's promise that God will make all things new. On behalf of the Working Party, I present the report and the proposed new contribution scheme Giving to Grow for the approval of the General Assembly.